All right, I'll start. I've been on the council the longest of our council members, and in my time, which is almost 9 years or over 9 years now, we've never had a housing project come before us of this size, which is kind of remarkable, actually, that nothing like this has come before us. So I'm glad that it has, and it gives us the opportunity to talk about a lot of issues, not all of which, in my case, are things I want to talk about that are directly related to this project, but to development in general. But I do have a few questions for staff, specifically on this project, which would extrapolate to future projects as well. We are in a state of water shortages and power shortages, and how does developing this kind of project where there's absolutely zero usage of power and water on this property today, how do we provide that sufficient water and power to new projects when we're already in a shortage situation? And how does this get approved without getting approval of ensuring that we have the power and water to provide to this development and other new developments?
Thank you, Your Honor and Council Members. Oscar Martinez, Community Development Department. Through the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment and the initial study that was prepared for the project, they reached out to Cal Water Service, who provided a will serve letter that's valid for 2 years, and essentially they do indicate that there is sufficient capacity to serve the project. And per the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, the total gallons per year of the project would be 317,000 approximately. That's for the exterior.
How much?
For the exterior, it's 317,000 gallons per year. And then the indoor water demand is 15,389,130 gallons per year. For a total of 15 million? Yeah. So for a total of 15,706,307 gallons per year.
I'm going to ask you to convert that to acre feet.
48,
no, I won't do that.
48.2 acre feet. So.
Oh, nice.
It was,
all right. All right. That man deserves a raise. Let's give him brownie points. That's good. You know, it's easy for any company to say that they can supply it, but this project's going to be here for a long, long time, and I'm just concerned that okay, we say yes on this project, and if we look at all these little, I'm saying, but this is a big project, but if we look at these projects as they come down the street one at a time, and we keep saying, yeah, we can do this, yeah, we can do this, yeah, we can do this, eventually we get to the point where we say, oh, we don't have any water, we don't have any power. How do we deal with that? And I know it's not necessarily the city's issue, you just have to follow the rules that you're given to do that, but I'm just trying to look in the big picture of the world, and especially the state that we live here in California with water shortages constantly and power shortages on the increase, and the state telling us to build, build, build. How do we balance that? And I know you probably don't have an answer for that, but that's something top of my mind when we're being told to build 5,000 units here in the city of Torrance in the next 7 years. And so you talked about water, and kudos for covering that. What about the power side?
Your Honor and members of the council, I'll have to look into that one as I did not prepare for that question. My apologies, but I can definitely get some additional information for you.
All right. And then that leads me to my other issue that always is raised when we talk about any kind of development, and that's traffic. Everybody talks traffic, traffic, traffic. And as we constantly see on these projects, we come back and say, oh, the traffic study says there's no impact, no significant impact. Yet somehow the traffic keeps getting worse and worse and worse. How is it that we pass all these projects that have traffic studies that say there's no significant impact, and yet traffic continues to get worse? I'd love to hear if anybody has a thought on that, but I'll expand on it if you don't.
Your Honorable Mayor, council members, Michelle Ramirez, Community Development Director. In regards to the traffic, I do agree that there is no crystal ball to say how traffic will impact this in the future. We do our best that we have our Title 24. We have, as a requirement, we do require EV charging stations in the project. I'm sure the developer himself, but we obviously have to reopen up the public hearing, can also speak on things they're doing to help reduce the traffic because of the development. The state is always trying to look at ways to reduce the traffic in the entire state of California. You know, they're trying to increase transportation, other transportation methods and modes, and so we do incorporate those into our plans. So we do the best we can.
If I can interrupt, yet it takes 20 years to improve an intersection in our city that is involving the state. That's just so contrary to trying to help us with these problems, and they drag their feet and make it extremely difficult for us to make improvement. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, not when we have control of it. We do it.
No, I understand. We do a much better job, but you were mentioning the state,
Yes.
which I always like to mention as well. And the state is telling us to do all these things,
Yes.
but yet they're making it extremely difficult for us to try to make the improvements that are necessary to make the general improvements that would allow for what they're asking for.
Yeah.
And that's where I have a huge issue.
I understand, and you know, the state has also, you know, passed certain legislations. I want to say AB 2097. Hope it's not SB 2097. I have too many bills in my head, but AB 2097, whereby you know you don't have to provide the parking that's required any longer if you have transit. To the testament of this development, they did not take advantage of that. They could have easily have taken advantage of it. They did not. They at least parked it to the minimum that we had asked them to do. But I do agree there are certain legislation, certain local requirements that we have in place to try to help the traffic. We will continue to do that. But you are correct. It is something that, you know, we do see increasing on our streets.
Mr. Martinez, did you have anything else on the power? I know
Yes.
I saw smoke coming out of your computer there.
Your Honor, members of the City Council, Oscar Martinez, Community Development Department. Through the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, electrical facilities was analyzed, but it identified that no additional or new expanded electrical power facilities would be required, and that the proposed project would be less than significant in terms of electrical services.
So, very similar to traffic, no significant impact, yet we'll have brownouts and power outages all summer long, and let's shut down power plants and all that. So forgive me if I say this traffic studies, power studies, water studies are a bunch of hooey when it comes to these kind of projects. And when you look at the projects individually, yes, they're small, but when you add them all together, then it creates a much, much bigger impact.
Your Honorable Mayor, council members, and you are correct, but as other projects come online, those other projects are now going to have to take these projects that have been approved into play. And so they're going to have to evaluate the CEQA based on these additional projects. So there could be changes in future projects as they come forth, or there could be, they might not be able to get to the less than significant impact. Those ones who get in here first are probably going to have an easier time than those ones that come in later in the game.
I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyway, there's another issue. I'm going to come back to the traffic in a minute. There is literally and figuratively a cloud over our council about housing. Literally, there's raining outside. But figuratively, the cloud is that we have the state watching over us. And this is something that's never happened before, is that if we don't approve housing, the state's going to come down and punish us as a city. And those punishments are severe, and they're not something that I want to see happen to our city. And that, in my opinion, unfairly puts a burden on us as a council to potentially make decisions that we don't think are necessarily best for our city. I'm not referring necessarily to this particular project. I'm just speaking in general because I want the public to understand that our decision-making is now being affected by the folks in Sacramento who are basically, I shouldn't say the word dictate, telling us what to do on how we do our planning of our communities. And I really feel that that's wrong. We should have the freedom to be able to choose what we think is best for our community, because we know our communities better than anyone. And to have somebody, Sacramento legislators who've never even been in our city, telling us how we should and shouldn't build in our communities and penalize us if we don't meet their standards, I think is 100% wrong. And everyone knows, who knows me knows I've been fighting this for some time. So I feel like I've learned a few things in my years on the council, and I want to do a little show and tell in regards to traffic. I think I've been wanting to do this for quite some time, and so this project has given me the opportunity to do this. And to the developer, this is not a direct impact on you. It is an opportunity for me to speak on the issue of traffic and try to put some reality, at least what I believe. This is my personal opinion. It's not fact. It's not scientific. But I have some visual aids that I brought to do a little show and tell for everybody. So this represents the city of Torrance streets. And all the little M&Ms inside this bucket are the cars that are in our city for the people who live here. Everybody who lives here has a car, sometimes two, sometimes even three. And sometimes households have 3 and 4 and 5 cars in a particular household. So we've got a pretty good load of cars already in our city. And so some people say our city is already full. And so when we talk about traffic studies, they look at traffic flow and things like that. But I think what really needs to be done is to look at traffic from a traffic loading perspective. And that's how many cars can we accommodate, because the cars don't just sit in the garage. When these people move into these projects, they have a car, and it is true, it is in their garage, but we all drive places. And that driving causes the traffic that we see every day on our roads. And so when we start doing all this stuff, we start impacting the traffic load in our community. And there's so many things that impact that traffic load, and I want to try to demonstrate that for you visually. So here we have this one project that's being talked about here today, and that's adding a little extra traffic load to our city. But when you start adding all the projects that are coming on board, you can see what it's doing to the traffic load in our city. And we have these kind of projects that are actually coming down our pipeline today. So this is not hypothetical. This is projects that we've actually had people meet with. And so we know that there's going to be this additional traffic load coming to us. In addition to that, the traffic load that we have is during the daytime, our city grows in population because of all the people that come to our city to work. So that's an additional traffic load. It's a big load. It's over 100,000 people. Oh, geez, we're getting kind of full. What? What? You're all hungry? Oh, don't worry, I got plenty. So that's our daytime load, and I realize that disappears at night, but it does still impact our traffic that we see and we sit in at certain times of the day. Then we talk about the building that's happening around our community that affects Torrance, because Torrance is a pass-through city. So we have building going on in Redondo Beach and on the Hill, and they're being mandated by the state to build and build and build. And we have zero control over that. But yet it adds to the traffic load. Sorry. And I don't want to make too big of a mess, and I will clean it up, I promise. But, I'm sorry, what? I think you just ate a car. I didn't eat one. Oh, John's, okay. And then we have the state coming into play, and they're mandating that we build 5,000 units, which could potentially be 10,000 cars. Well, I got a lot more M&Ms here, but I don't think I'm going to make a big mess. But I think you're catching my point, is that all this stuff cumulatively adds up and adds up and adds up, and that's why we're having a traffic problem. And nobody's talking about it. And it drives me insane. I've lost all my hair. I just, it's a crazy time for me, and I think that this is the piece that so many people are missing when we talk about approving these kind of projects. again, I'm not taking this out on the developer. It's just an opportunity for me to try to express my feelings about the whole growth in a community and how, yes, we're being forced to do all this, but at the same time, we're not spending hardly any money on improving our traffic infrastructure, our streets and our roads. Yes, we're trying to fix the potholes, we're repaving, but we're not building more roads or expanding our roads to add for additional capacity. And certainly transit is failing miserably, at least in the South Bay. And to expect us to continue to do this, how is this going to improve our quality of life? It's absolutely not going to. And with that, I will start eating some M&Ms. Anybody want some? Come on up. I'll clean it up later.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Lewis.
That was about the
Top
great.
that.
That was about the greatest demonstration of unfunded state mandates that I've ever seen, and I'm going to help you do some traffic calming a little bit later.
You're going to eat some M&Ms, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
I'm going to
pass
help with
them
that
down.
traffic control problem.